Hi everyone, hope everybody had a lovely Christmas. And I have a lot to go through today for you guys. This movie that I watched, I actually watched this Kingsman, The Golden Circle. It's the second part to the Kingsman series. I haven't seen the third one yet. But this actual symbol of their movie reminded me of astrology. The symbol behind them is astrology, and I want to get into that. I also watched the Matrix 4 movie, and I was really excited to see that the Freedom ship was named Nemosin, and Trinity, which is the woman, and it was just, I really liked all the symbolism in it. It showed that in the end we do win, but we have to do the inner war with our shadow, right? That's what the whole movie was about. I don't want to tell you the plot of the movie, but it was very telling. So I want to get into the symbolism and how this all ties to the number 515. The number 515, when we have the blood moon on May 15th at midnight, and it's in Libra, when the sun is in Taurus by the Pleiades with a conjunction with Mercury, which is your mind. This is very important, this date, as well as, that there's a blood moon happening at midnight, because the numerology of the number 515 is esoteric. And we need to get into that. It also ties into the Saturn square, the magic square. And that was actually, I was talking to a client and she mentioned that. And so I was like, oh, that's another good clue that it's all tying in numerically to May 15th. And also symbolically through festivals, right? The Mercury Nelia festival is May 15th. So we have all these things linking, and I want to go through it all, but it also ties into the poppy and the meaning of the poppy. And this comes up in this movie, The Golden Circle, because the Nemesis character, her name is Poppy. Okay, and they also show symbolism through this movie that I want to go through. So yeah, it's a lot to go through, but it all ties into New York and the Brooklyn Bridge and, the flood that looks like they're, manifesting for New York. Like I explained in my last video, bingo ties to the poppy. Now, somebody sent me this, which I didn't, it never occurred to me when I watched the old Matrix movie years ago, that the Oracle, she says bingo. I put the timestamp on the video there where she says it. So that's fascinating that, the word bingo is in the Matrix movie. It was also in the first Kingsman movie. They said bingo. Here's some symbolism where they show the red and white of the Bedo. Elton John's in this movie, and he's dressed up like a peacock. He's like the friend. He's like, he's actually being captured and, kept against his will. He also has the dragonfly on him. Then they show the hangman. There's also Hangman with, what's her name, Elliot Page on Time magazine. They also show the twins. So the twins is always symbolic to the two pillars. One of the characters has like a whip to, like a lasso and a whip, which is to do with, corralling you. And the whip ties to Cassiopeia. There was a star in Cassiopeia, the Queen of Heaven, who is like the harvest queen, and one of her stars is called the whip in Chinese astrology. Here he has the lasso, but he also has a whip, and they use the chair with the whip. Of course, that's Cassiopeia because she sits in a chair. One of the characters has a missing eye, like Odin, and he also has the lasso. Then they show the 8-ball, number 16. And I was like, oh, that's really, really important. When you play pool, there's always 15 balls, right? There is no 16 ball. So the 16th ball is not part of the triangle. Just remember that, because I'm going to tie this into when I get into the esoteric meaning of the number 515. The other reason it stands out for me is because, it's all tying into Valentine's Day, right? Because of Captain Cook being killed on Valentine's Day. And it's all going to the Festival of Rome that ties into February 15th. Okay, so, but the full moon this year in February is going to be on the 16th. So I was just like, is that when they're going to create the flood is on the 16th, and that's why they're showing us the 16th ball. So that I just had that came into my head when I saw it. And the bad guy in the first Kingsman movie, his name was Valentine. And he had the orange baseball cap, which, ties back to when the Stuart family was dethroned from, I think it was William the Orange from Denmark, right? So this is an old war that's going along with the elites here. I got sent this with the Dirty Scoundrel movie where he's got the patch on his eye, but he has the Neptune fork. Okay, so they're showing us the water, and, it's to do with Odin. Now, Poppy, everything's red. She's out in the jungle, and she's really to do with drugging the population, right? She creates marijuana, and then she laces it with something, and everybody, all their veins turn blue, and they become statues. They become frozen. First they go insane, and then they become frozen. So it's all to do with, turning to stone, right? And then she tries to threaten the government, like, I have the antidote, and I'll give you the antidote if you allow drugs to become legal, and I can get out of the, hiding out in the bush kind of thing, and I want to be able to legalize my drugs. So when they show the antidote, it goes to the Statue of Liberty, right, in New York. So they're tying in New York to the theme. Some other channel had noticed that Adele's, concert that she did, which is really the first stage of alchemy. It was all done in black, and she had Saturn earrings on and everything. That's the Negredo. They had the ocean waves coming up behind her at the beginning of the concert. So again, they're showing like a tsunami. Now, Bobby, he's changed his channel to Casey Jones, but you can find his video here with the title. He had done this, I think 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. He had found Orion constellation in around the Brooklyn Bridge, like the top of Orion where the hammer is actually at the Brooklyn Bridge. It's all made into the streets. Okay, so it's like this is really pre-planned. Okay, we are definitely in the Matrix. And if you've watched my last video, this all ties into the Roar song that Katy Perry did, and she did it right at the Brooklyn Bridge, and that's called The Eye of the Tiger, the lyrics, and it's all connected, okay? So you have to go back and watch the other videos I did on New York. There's so much information, it's ridiculous. So here on the Chinese astrology, they're naming it to do with monsters in this location of the sky. It's called the Charge of Monsters, right at the Hammer of Orion. May 15th, Ceres is right on the hammer. Now, she is the harvest queen, which would really be Cassiopeia in the constellations, okay? So she's on the Apostles of Washington painting at the Capitol building. Now, if you look, I've explained this before, there's a grid that goes to the North Pole, like the North Star, okay? So, which is Polaris. And, of course, the grid actually has just a cross. And the hammer of Orion is on one of the equatorial grid lines that come through and across the elliptic. Okay, so the hammer of Orion is a really, really important part of the sky. Okay, the other one is the tail of the whale. The other one is the Golden Gate. And the fourth one is Zabijaba. Okay, so these are really, really important locations. Ceres and the comet won't pull up at the same time, but I circled the hammer where Ceres is, and there's a comet just above her, right above that is Polaris, the North Pole. Okay, so there's like a comet energy coming through. This is all happening on 5/15. It's pretty intense. Now, I've mentioned before that Orion was originally called Uran. Now, this ties into number 15 because Phosphorus, which comes from Uran, its periodic number is 15. So Phosphorus being the number 15 in the periodic table, it's also the bringer of light, okay? That's what it means because it's the light bringer is the phosphorus, it glows, okay? Now, it's the symbol that you're using esoterically is the tetrahedron. It's a triangle, okay? And that's important as well because I'm going to get into that, and that ties into New York as well. So in the first Kingsman movie, they have It's so funny. They go, to pee or not to pee. They have all these newspaper front pages and then wipeout. And when I saw that, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? It's right in our faces, right? It has to do with phosphorus. I'm sure that they coming to collect their nectar for the gods, and it's phosphorus. And that's what activates DNA. And these beings that rule this matrix need that phosphorus in containers, okay? And that ties into the second Golden Circle movie. They have this kind of scene where it looks like they're peeing out of containers. But the scene, it's funny because it's actually whiskey, but it's yellow, right? And so then it's kind of, they make it like a joke, and then they're kind of sparring with this other guy, and then they kind of knock it, and then it pees at him. Okay, so I was like, that's the friggin', that's the phosphorus, that's the urine, the nectar. Now, the queen wears 5 poppies, right? Because it all ties into the poppies and the number 5. 515. It actually, it's going to blow your mind. It ties into bingo. Okay, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this whole thing with the poppies, it's tying into this esoteric numerology to see if you're going to be asleep in the field of poppies or you're going to awaken. And you see this in the Wizard of Oz movie where she falls asleep in the field. And in the book, they're saying the deadly poppy field. The smell of the flowers is killing us. I myself can scarcely keep my eyes open, and the dog is asleep already. It was true, Toto had fallen down beside his little mistress. But the scarecrow and the tin woodman, not being made of flesh, were not troubled by the scents of the flowers. And of course, there's a link with Trump and poppies. He declared war on the poppies. Now, the poppies is opium, right? It's the opioids, it's the opium, it's heroin. Everything that is kind of evil represents the poppy. But then they have, Remembrance Day, where you're supposed to wear a poppy. And the poppy is evil. I had a friend come and say to me, are you going to wear a poppy? And my dad was a prisoner of war, okay? And I salute anybody that had to experience that. And I said, no, I'll never wear a poppy again. She unfriended me on Facebook because I won't wear a poppy, but I refuse to ever wear a poppy because it means you're unconscious and you're sacrificing yourself. It has nothing to do with, and it's about not remembering. That's what the poppy represents. It's like not remembering who you are and that you just sacrifice yourself because somebody told you to go shoot some other people because it was a good thing to do. It's not a good symbol. So remember that John Byng, who was the admiral that got executed by the British government, the only one ever to, and then Forbes took his place because he was the second man in running to replace him. Byng's coat of arms has the poppy on it. So he was a sacrifice, literally. And this is where they film the Kingsman movie. In the first movie, they're using the house as their headquarters. In the second movie, they blow up the house. But it's just like, sci-fi blow up. They don't actually destroy it, but there's lots of movies that are taking place there. And of course, they have the Neptune fork on the front entrance of the building. Poseidon, water, storm god, floods. Second stage of alchemy. It's ruled by Neptune and the moon. Okay, so Neptune cleanses you and washes away your fears. That's the second stage that you have to do inward. You have to get rid of your fears, rid of your anger, so that you can get to this bliss state and be in a God consciousness. When you're angry in a war frame of mind, you're not in God consciousness. You're on the pillar of this realm. One of the pillars of this realm. It's either one or the other, right? So they show this in the Matrix movie, the Matrix 4. They're saying that it doesn't matter what you're angry about. As long as you're angry, this matrix has locked you, okay? Because anger is really based from fear, right? That's where it comes from. And they show in the matrix that once you fight your demon inside, then you're able to get through the veil, and then you can come back and be the warrior because you have the God consciousness with you. But you can't be the fighter when you're inside the realm. Okay, you have to be able to exit first, and you have to do that by inner work, and then you come back and fight for goodness. But if you do it beforehand, you're locked in. Neo's shadow, his name is Agent Smith. He ends up being his boss in the Matrix 4 movie. And he, I'm not going to tell you the whole plot, but the fact that his name is Smith is relevant esoterically, because this ties into the polarity that the Finnish version of Vulcan, or Wayland the Smith, the root of this word sm, is very similar to the Egyptian word sma for the concept of two powers or forces that balance the axis pole of creation. In Sanskrit, the word for pole or pillar is shamba. So it's like shambhala is to do with the pole, with the pillars. But see, the word Smith, he's or Wayland the Smith. There you go. He's the warrior that you have to fight inside. Well, he's the shadow. You've got to balance it. So when I started looking into the Forbes family, and this is John Forbes that ended up taking John Bing's place after he was sacrificed. And, he ended up making himself look like a good guy because he was like, I don't really want, I don't support what you're doing. So he ended up getting all the glory for it. And then he ended up, becoming, command of Admiral John Bing's fleet. And then he ended up becoming part of the parliament. So it really boosted his career with John Bing out of the way. Now, the Forbes family. The American families of Perkins, Astor, and Forbes made tens of millions of money in the opium trade. So they were into all this opium wars that were happening back in the 1700s and 1800s with China. And so that's how they made all their money. And I'm sure John Bing was also. He didn't make a big mansion like that from an admiral salaries. So they were probably doing opium trading, and then Forbes was like, oh, if I get this guy out of the way, I can cash in on all of it. So the whole Forbes family are opium traders. It's even like on their Wikipedia page. It runs through their bloodline. Francis Blackwell Forbes, 1839 to 1908, was a poppy botanist, wrote a book on the Chinese plants, opium trader in the China trade. So, they're not shy to say that's what they were into. Now, they did the execution in Portsmouth, and somebody sent me this, where Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Betty and Barney Hill experienced a close encounter with an unidentified flying object. This was the first one, and they tie in Lincoln to it. Lincoln is the pond, is the nectar. So it's like the first UFO, but it's all tying into the same names, right? Yeah, it's in Welsh. That's Llyn is the pond, which is the name for Lincoln. So we are the pawns in the chess game. The goal is to get to be the knights and kings and queens in the chess game so you can move in different directions. But that's what the whole black and white board is. It's just a chess game. That's really, and that's what the whole thing with Trump is. Oh, he plays chess. He plays, 5-tiered chess. It's all to do with this duality of this realm, the black and white, the first and second stage of alchemy. You have to merge these two together inside yourself, and then you can get to the rubedo, which is robbing time, skipping out of time, jumping timelines, which is the red and white. The last stage is Mercury. Mercury, the red Mercury. And actually, it repels from garlic. So this is where the whole vampire thing comes into, And a vampire is what? It doesn't age. Yes, it's like supposed to suck blood or whatever, but it's not. They demonize it because it's really to do with Mercury. And Mercury is your mind. Okay, so once you can get your mind to get it theta, and you can balance the left and right hemispheres of your brain, you are not angry anymore. You're in bliss state. You cannot be mad because you see the illusion, and there's no reason to be mad at an illusion. This is nonsense, right? So once you can get to that place, you're becoming the red Mercury. And that's the last stage of alchemy, the red. And the very first time they had the poppies in Canada, the Veterans Association chose the Jewish Canadian philanthropist Lillian Freeman to lead the poppy campaign in Canada. Among the patrons was Governor General Byng and his wife Lady Byng. The first Poppy Day in Canada and Britain occurred on November 11th in 1921. Millions of people, bought more poppies. So they brought the bloodline of the Byng and presented them, showing up as the poppy. And this is all history repeating itself. But to me, it's like they're saying, look, we got the Bing family here, it's like he was sacrificed because of the poppy trade. There's poppies on their coat of arms. They also have the Azazel goat on their coat of arms. So there you go. That was, big sacrifice. And then it just keeps coming through the matrix, repeating. So when you look at the etymology in the Burmese, Bing means opium. Oh, surprise, surprise. So then they have in the slang for the drug trade, the Big O is opium. Now the Big O in Montreal is the Olympic Stadium, but the Big O is really Capricorn, right? And we see this in the Omicron video game that David Bowie uses, his album called The Hours. He has the Big O on it when he's looking at himself dead, right? It's the way out is the Big O, if you can get the key. And bingo, because we're going to bring this all into bingo, means to inject one shot. A vaccine. So, of course, in the realm of duality, it has another meaning. It means the hollow or the homestead. So it's like, the safe place, right? The home. It can also mean the jury, so to be judged. So Bing, he was a composer, Chinese composer, the moonlight of the second spring. So it's tying the moon to the spring. They tied a concert in 1983 for his 90th anniversary of his birthday, and it was held on September 11th. Go figure. Because Bing and the moon is the second stage of alchemy with Neptune. And then, of course, they have to name a cherry after him. Bing, there's popular Bing cherries. Well, what's a red circle like that? That, to me, looks like a blood moon. So this just blew me away when I realized that David Bowie had sung with Bing Crosby. I was like, oh my God, David Bowie has tried to tell us what this realm is about through his whole career. He goes and sings with Bing Crosby at Christmas time, right? Little drummer boy. Oh my God, peace on earth. Yeah, pretty funny. So, he lived next to the Puck building, right? I did a video on that about New York. Now, the Puck happens to be celebrated on the 10th and 12th of August. This is in Ireland. And, that's when, Hecate, the three moon goddess, the crossway goddess, the crossroad goddess, the keeper of the keys. And this is when they said the whole triangle of the Washington Triangle is aligning in the mid-August. So the Puck Festival is aligning to mid-August, which is all tying into Virgo, which is what the Washington Triangle represents, is Virgo, right? It's really the tree of life, Virgo, because she has the Spica star and the Ascension star. It's really your choice which one you go with. Okay, so then they also have him named as the King Puck. Okay, so he's the king, but what is it? It's a goat. Okay, so they're using the goat as Capricorn, Saturn, who's the keeper of the key. That's what Puck is representing in their Puck fair. So Capricorn is the goat. He's the Omicron. He's the Big O. He's the opium. He's like, he's going to put you to sleep if you don't wake up, okay? And then the goat, this is being used all this year. 2021 is being the year of the goat in sports. The GOAT stands for the greatest of all time. Yeah, he's the great, because it's about time. Anytime they use the word time, they're talking about Saturn. I love this, David Bowie. David Bowie, what's really happening? One of his songs. Yeah, you have to ascend. You have to basically become the phoenix. Get out of here. Get out of the matrix. So somebody sent me this from Britain. They started this thing with Madness Night Out, is the Bongo Bingo. Okay, so I don't know what game they're playing, but they're using the word Bing. Bingo. Now, John Bing's cousin in the same family from Rootham Park, the house where they did the movie for the Kingsman. His name was Bingo. Okay, and then they're saying that they don't know where the name Bingo came from. It came from Beano or something. Like, no, but this is way, way back. They were using this word bingo. So bingo has a meaning. Now we know what it is. It has to do with the poppies and the opium. Okay, they just don't want you to know that the bingo game is about opium. Well, it's named after opium, but it's not just Bing, it's bingo. So there's an O, okay, so you can go out the O, or you can be in O. You can be in go, right? So you can change the word, like just use be and then in, and then I'm going. So if I'm being inward, then I go. So it's a really good word. Like it can be either way, right? So it's fascinating. But the math to it is 515. It's funny, on this card they're using 369, which is the vortex math, and then 11-1, which is the Trinity. So they're showing you that there's esoteric numbers linking to bingo. But the real esoteric meaning is because the way they've created bingo, they've taken the 5 letters, and then they take 1 to 15 for each row, and then 16 to 30. So they're using math of 515, and you can go and do math equations. And they're saying, how to make bingo cards, because the guy that made the bingo cards, supposedly he went insane because he made 6,000 cards, none of them the same. But the N always has the free square in the middle of the cards. So there's a free space, right? So it's like the free guy. It's the free space. You can get to that door if you can see the illusion. But so everything adds up. 15 times 5 adds to 75. So they use 75 numbers, but there's always this free space. You have to get out of this Matrix video game, and you have to go inward. He's doing the same thing as Superman does. Opens a shirt, you have to go in. So 515 is May 15th, right? So it's the bingo card's tying, the mathematical structure of the bingo card ties to the date May 15th. So free space, this I found was funny because you just look at pictures of bingo cards, and this one, it looks like the sun, right? The sun activates you. This one, it's the unicorn is the free space. You guys know going on about the unicorn. And then you have the pentagram, star. Okay, free space, it's the star. It's always to do with the star. I'm going to explain to you why free is the star. The star represents freedom. It actually ties to astrology and aspects through astrology. The symbol in the Kingsman Golden Circle movie is actually known as a semi-sextile. A semi-sextile looks like a kind of a K on its side, and then you have the K on the other flip side, and this is called a quincunx, and I do believe that they're tying it to this. They've just flipped it because the number of degrees that goes with a quincunx is 150, so we get the number 15. And what's really fascinating, you see the quintile, it represents a pentagon, but this also means Q. So the Q, symbolism is in astrology, and the number with that is 72. Quintiles look like a pentagram star inside the circle of your chart. And these are aspects where planets have relationships with other planets. So then in some old texts, it's called a pent-elf tile. So it's like a 5-elf tile is the pentagram star within a circle. Astrology is math because it ties into sacred geometry, which is math. So here we have the pentagram, and you can see the numbers. We have the 108 degrees, but we also have the 144, the 72, and the 36. Now here's a visual where you see the actual fractions, and you can see the shape of what these aspects can create inside the middle of your chart. Now the biquintal, which is 144, and you get 144,000 in the Bible, this ends up being the pentagram inside the circle. It's 2/5. The 1/5 is 72 is the quintile. It's just the pentagram, right? So it's, I mean, sorry, just the pentagon inside the circle, not the pentagram. So we have the pentagram and the pentagon, which is 144 and 72. The 135 ties into May 15th because it's the 135th day of the year. And this is called the sesquiquadrati. And this looks like a square with a little angle in it. It almost looks like a TV set. And this is 8, okay? It has 8 stars, pointed star in it. It's almost like 2 squares on top of each other. That's much easier to see the visual this way. So we have Aries on top, Libra at the bottom, Cancer, and Capricorn. So this is the cardinal cross, the way it's laid out. But then you can see the degrees. Now, what I find really fascinating is because May 15th is the 135th day of the year, and this is aligning with the 144 and the 150. And so this is all tying into Scorpio, right? This is the doorway. Scorpio Fucius is the doorway out. It's to do with your soul, Pluto. It's to do with fear and being able to master fear. And then the other side would be Virgo, which is the same degrees, but on the opposite side. And Virgo is service to others, can be detriment to self. When Pluto's in Virgo, it's service to others, at detriment to self. So when your soul is in that state, you're going to serve the tree. Right? It's more to the service of the tree for the group think, because Virgo is on the mutable cross. So May 15th, 2022, 135th day of the year, there are 230 days left in 2022. Okay, so the 230 days is important too because we get the number 23, and I have to go into all that, what that means. And then they say there's 37 days left until summer, and 37 is a huge Freemason number and Euclid math. And then we have the lunar eclipse is happening at the blood moon, the total phase of the blood moon, and it will be visible in the North and South America, Europe and Africa, and parts of Asia. So it's a really big blood moon. And this is also the day called Peace Officers Memorial Day, is celebrated on May 15th. So it's the day of peace. It's also Mercurialia Day, which is worshiping Mercury, and Mercury is in conjunction with the sun by the Pleiades. Now the Pleiades rule all, right? That's the labyrinth, and the Pleiades are the 7 sisters. A lot of ancient cultures believe that was their ancestral's portal to them, was through the Pleiades. The sunrise is at 5:05, so we get the 5:5. And the sunset is at 8:48 p.m. And they're saying this day should be devoted to spiritual essence of human being, trying to minimize any work and household activities. Okay, so it's really to stay in peace and meditate on this day. Now the number 135 ties into the Saturn square, and all the numbers are there, like 45 times 3 equals 135. And then we have 15 times 9 equals 135. So all the numbers of the magic square are 3, 9, 15, and 45. They're all there, and they all end up going to 135. Now, here we have a grid representing the planets with the numbers. And they're saying the number 9 is Mars. So that would be Scorpio, and Pluto rules the 8th house. And also Aries, your crown, your first house is ruled by Aries. So then that would be number 9. And then the number 5 is Saturn. So Saturn is representing number 5. And then Jupiter is number 3. And 1 would be Mercury. Mars fire is I am. Saturn earth is Capricorn. Jupiter wood, well, we don't have wood in astrology, in normal astrology. And water Mercury, that doesn't exist either. It's always earth and air. So this is Chinese. But it's interesting that Mars and Saturn are aligning. Now, Groundhog Day, he holds up his two hands, 5, 5. And then they have the number 5 and 4, or you could say 45 there, right? So 4 is the moon in the houses, right? Cancer rules the 4th house, and Leo rules the 5th house. So 4 and 5 are the two pillars, which is, cool because they add to 9. So the middle path is always 9. 9 in Buddhism is the ascended soul. So it's like you have to bring your two pillars together, right? That makes the 9. The reason Groundhog movie comes into play is because the nerd Ryerson, he says Bing in the movie. So we have another Bing with the whole, repetitive reloop Groundhog Day. So this is really important. The properties of the number 515 represents the incarnation of one of the people of Trinity, according to Apelio. Number of the messenger of God that Dante makes say to Beatrice in the Divine Comedy. So what's cool is Trinity is the divine feminine in the Matrix 4 movie. So it's tying into the Trinity being, I believe, is the past, present, and future. The Sefer Yetzirah gives the number 515 the following interpretation. The 10 Sephirots are like the fingers of the hand, 10. The 5 against 5, but in the middle of them is the alliance of the unit. So in the middle it makes the 1, right? So 5, 1, 5 is the two hands, like the two hands of God. According to Lima de Fetas, it is the number of the Paraclete, which represents the Holy Spirit. So in Groundhog Day, he wakes up every morning at 5:59, flipping to 6, right? So it's the 2, 5, and then the 9, which is Aries, which is Scorpio, or the I am, or it's the I, the 1, right? And then it goes from 9 till, it goes to 6, but it goes to 0, which is back to, back to the 1. Okay, so it's fascinating that they're showing that this has the Bing in it, but then the 5, 5 is there, and he's holding up his 2, 5 fingers, 5, 5, in the movie poster. Pool and the 15 in the triangle. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 add to 15. So that's why 15 is such a sacred number, because it has to do with 5. And then Phosphorus is the, periodic number of 15. The crystal anniversary celebrates the 15th years. May 15th is the International Day of Families. So back, reunite with your family. And then they're also saying it has to do with anti-slavery, so you don't become the slave anymore. And then, of course, Capricorn, number 15 in the tarot cards, right? It's the devil card, is number 15. The 5 card is the Pope. It's the Hierophant. It's Taurus, which is where the sun is, and Mercury on the Pleiades. So it's like everything's aligning. It's like freaking amazing. And of course, the Pleiades all has to do with feminine and the divine feminine, which is the Trinity, which is like the Hecate is the moon goddess with the 3 phases of the moon, which is, present, past, present, and future is the Trinity. And here they have this celebration of the quinceanary is a grand fancy dress celebration with a girl when a girl turns 15. So she turns into her womanhood. So that's, again, a very symbolic number. The first Jacobite rising is known simply as the 15 because it occurred in 1715. The Sonnet 15 by William Shakespeare also. And this is the whole thing was with, the Stuart King, James was the last Catholic king, and then it got taken over with George Byng, George Byng, the original Torrington of Viscount that John Byng, that was his father, he, kind of turned his back on King James and his ascendants and went and got William the Conqueror, well, no, it wasn't William the Conqueror, but it was William the Orange. Yeah, William the Orange, and he brought him in, and that's who ended up ruling England after. So, anyhow, the story goes round and round, but it's all interconnected. I think the original magic square, which appeared on the back of a turtle in 2205 BC. So we get the number 5, and we get the number 22, which is the Fool, right? It's the 22 cards in the tarot, and 0 is the 22nd. So that's number 15, the 15 magic square. This is funny. I came across this YouTube video of a Christian saying, you know, how you shouldn't be trying to look for the time of the rapture. And this whole story was based around the Simpsons show showing that it was all about the rapture, and Homer ends up looking like a fool because he got the date wrong. Okay, so he's saying, don't look for the date because you'll look like a fool. So that's not what you're supposed to do. So anyhow, I just thought it was amusing because in this video, the Simpsons. I'd never watched this episode. It's showing 5:15 in the friggin' show, and I didn't even know that it even existed, a Simpson Rapture show. So here they are waiting. There's a storm. It's raining. Of course, there's a storm. But there's a guy dressed up supposedly like a native, like a Hawaiian native. So I'm like, is that tying in the storm to Valentine's Day because of James Cook, with the natives killing him? I'm just wondering if that's a symbol there. So then he goes back. He got the date wrong. So he goes back and does all these calculations. And they show, 666, 333, 13. And then they show the 1505 date right there on the board. I was like, no way. And then everybody's laughing at him because he got his date wrong. And he's walking by this shop called the Androids Dungeon and Baseball Card Shop. So there's like a robot there. So it's like, it's like the guy that's laughing at him is in the robot world, right? Because he doesn't have any compassion. So I just thought it was so funny. Like, the whole point of being with God is to let go of your ego, is not care what other people think and just stand with God. And then this is kind of like basing around like, oh, you're supposed to care and, not look like the fool. And you don't want to look for the date because then you'll look like the fool. And I'm really happy being the fool. Like, it's like, I don't care if this date, May 15th, nothing happens. I really don't care. I'm not attached to it because it's a script and it's going to happen at one point, but it's just fun. I find it fun and entertaining to see all the dots connected because it makes you realize that it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen on that date, who cares? Just, carry on and wait for the next date. But you can't get, like, emotionally attached to it. Because then you're stuck in the matrix, right? You just have to let it go. So this video is going on like, yeah, but you're going to see signs. You're going to see signs all over the place, but watch for the signs, but don't look for the date. And as he's saying this, I'm like, isn't that a building in New York City? And there's a flood going on, and this is like in the Simpson Rapture show, and I'm like, oh my God, that building must be super important. So of course I had to go do a whole dig on that, and that brought me to 23. The number 23 is all to do with this building. So here's the building. It's a building. It's like built like a triangle, right? So we've got like, the number 15, right, is the triangle, and the pool, like, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 adds to 15. It's the triangle. So the history on this building is interesting. So it's called the Flatiron Building. Originally, the Fuller Building is a triangle, 22 stories. 22, the tarot cards. It's on 5th Avenue. It's in the Flatiron District, neighborhood of Manhattan. And also, let's see, it has, it's on East 22nd Street. So then we have 22 again, and then East 23rd Street. Okay, so it's the 5th and the 23 and the 22. So yeah, so these are all esoteric numbers. Yeah, and it's on 175 5th Avenue. So the 5 ties into the 75 for the bingo cards, right? There's 5 lines and they use 75 numbers. So there you go. 23 is 2 and 3 is 5. So it brings the other 5 into it. And then it's your DNA, right? 23andMe DNA. And then if you take your DNA strands and you look from it from an aerial view down, Dan Winter has a picture of this. It looks like a pentagon 5 times over top of each other, and it looks like a rose. That's your DNA. So the DNA 23 ties to the pent. Okay, so it's always the pent is what's so important. It has to do with your DNA. So this magic line that's going from the Statue of Liberty through Trump Towers, where the Twin Towers were, and also the Lipstick Building, this building is in alignment, the Flatiron Building. After the war ended, the 165th Infantry Regiment passes through the Victoria Arch in Madison Square, and it has the Flatiron Building in the background. So they're using it, tying it into war, using the symbolism. Now they're saying here, the Navy recruiting station in the building, the cow catcher, during the pre-World War I Wake Up America Day parade. Oh yeah, wake up and go kill people. This is interesting. The cow catcher is Taurus, right? That's the cow, and it's the labyrinth. It's the cow catcher. So they're tying it into Taurus. So the Fuller Construction Company also made the Lincoln Memorial, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington, the Freer Gallery of Art, Pennsylvania Station, the Flatiron Building, yeah, Macy Herald Square, New York Times Building, and the Plaza Hotel that Trump owned. It was all joined together with the Vanderbilts, I think the Adams family, Charles Schwartz, J.P. Morgan, and also Black. They were all part of this company working together. Now, right on top of the building has like the 2 twins, and then they have the fleur-de-lis on top. So it's like, that's a French symbol. And flat iron or flat rion, they just move the R and the I, means flattery, right? So it's like your ego in a way. So I checked out what this sculpture is, the standing man up behind it. They also had a picture of it below, standing in front and looking at the building, and this is Anthony Gormley. This work is called The Event Horizon, the person standing. He has them all over different locations, all over the planet. One of them is featured in the 2008 first episode of Ashes to Ashes. Well, that ties in, it's a British TV series, well, that ties into David Bowie, his song. And of course, the whole show is all about ascending. So the final episode reveals that the life on Mars, Ashes to Ashes, it's David Bowie, world is a form of the limbo or purgatory or restless dead police officers. So they're saying like there are all these people like walking around like zombies. The revelation of their death comes as a surprise to all except Gene, who knew they were all dead but who had forgotten the circumstances of his own death due to the passage of time. All except Hunt move on, as he is the psychochomp. Well, he's like, that would be like Chiron that takes you across the river Styx. At St. Peter's, like St. Peter-like figure, to all of his officers, helping them on their way to the Railway Arms pub, which is standing in for heaven. Okay, so then they go, when he finally deleted Keats sinks into the night, laughing insanely and singing to Jean, we'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when. That's kind of like he's the devil. Okay, and then Jean's last words were, a word in your shell-like pal. Shell-like is your Taurus, well, it's your toroidal field, but it's your shell of Cancer. Okay, the Cancer card, the Chariot, is your shell. It's your pearl. Okay, it's the pearl around you. It's the nacre. And this ties into the Meissner effect in quantum physics, and basically you become a superconductor, so you don't die from this energy that comes into the planet. And this is all to do with quantum physics. So, and then yeah, it's all to do with life on Mars. So this whole show And this statue to this building in New York is still tying into David Bowie. It's like weird. Yeah, and one of his other works is, looking at yourself in the mirror. It's a statue. This is in Regent Place in London. And this is to do with the Angel of the North. It's all to do with the North Pole. This is to do with, Santa Claus, the North Pole, but it also has to do with Hyperborea, the entrance into the inner world. And this is how the Freemasons made the pentagram go right across North America. And you can see Washington, D.C. there is in perfect line with St. Louis, which is the Silver Gate, where the Silver Archway is. And then they go to the Golden Gate, which is like the Golden Gate in the sky. And then also up to the Lions Bridge, okay, Lions Gate Bridge in Vancouver, which is the Lions Gate is between Cancer and Leo in the sky. It's the middle path, okay, that's the Lions Gate. And this all ties into the water symbol, because the water symbol is an upside down triangle. I've done that in pink. And the phi line goes right from St. Louis up to Winnipeg, where they have this building called the Legislature Building, and that was built by the Freemasons. And on top of that building is called the Golden Boy, and he points north. He is facing north, up to the top of the pentagram, which is called Leopold Island. He was, I think, the grandson of Queen Victoria. He's also linked to Alice, the original story of Alice in Wonderland. He was in love with her. And he was a Freemason, and he came to Canada. And also that island that is named Leopold Island, it looks like a crown. It's like high walls, almost like the Yggdrasil, on Manly P. Hall's, front of his book there, Secret Teachings of All Ages. It's like an ice wall around the tree, okay, so at the top of the tree. So, yeah, that's what that island looks like. It's a bird sanctuary island. But this is all made for us to be able to see, so that you can see the divinity in the people and all the effort that they put in, so that if you wanted to awaken, you could see these, architectural buildings that are showing you that you're not going crazy. This is really what was built for you to see. Other people can't see it because it's just, they're not ready to see it. But at least it gives you a sense of comfort and knowing that this was built for us, to help us through our awakening process. It's not nefarious. It's not put there to laugh at you. It's put there for you to help you get through your darkness of the Negredo, the first stage of alchemy. When they're describing the Flatiron Building, they're calling it a quintessential symbol of New York City. So they're using the quint, which is 5 again. Now, the number 23, right? Jim Carrey's movie, 23. It's really important, and this goes really back far in history. This is 1905. The Flatiron Building in the background shows the 23rd Street is the location. So they're saying, well will be blowed. Well will be blowed. And they're calling this to do with 23 Skidoo. So 23 Skidoo is an American slang phrase popularized during the early 20th century. It generally refers to leaving quickly, being forced to leave quickly by someone else, or taking advantage of a propitious opportunity to leave. The exact origin of the phrase is uncertain. Okay, so it's like get out of Dodge, get out. Okay, so that's what the phrase 23 Skidoo really means. 23 Skidoo has been described as perhaps the first fully national fad expression, and one of the most popular fad expressions to appear in the U.S., to the extent that the pennants of armbands at shore resorts, parks, and country fairs bore either 23 or the word Skidoo. Wow. 23 Skidoo combines two early expressions, 23, 1899, and Skidoo, 1901. both of which, independently and separately, referring to leaving, being kicked out, or end of something. 23 Skidoo quickly became a popular catchphrase after its appearance in the early 1906 in the 1935 film Call of the Wild, okay, with Clark Gable. Okay, so that's where, yeah, it was really popular. Here's just a list of all the different TV shows and movies and stuff that the Flatiron Building was used in. So lots of really famous shows like Friends, The Godzilla, Spectacular Spider-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay, so it's a popular building. Here's a whole bunch of other shows that 23 Skidoo was used in, but this one I found really interesting. The password 23 Skidoo was used for Microsoft. So yeah, they know what it means. And this is funny. They even bring in Pi on this show. The tree grows in Brooklyn. He dispersed the crowd very simply by telling them he'd send for the Pi wagon and take them all down to the station house if they didn't 23 Skidoo. So if you don't get out of there, you're going on the Pi wagon. Yeah, that's not good. I don't want to be on the Pi wagon. Say 99. What for? That can't cure a cold. I'd rather say 23 to you. But I guess you're too young to know what that means. Skidoo. Yeah, so they're using it in, all through our culture. But the word actually refers to skedaddle. It means get out of here, to leave in a hurry. Now here it's getting into the nitty-gritty of it because this is esoteric. There is also the arcane piece of Argot from the turn of the century, 1920s, that the 23 Skidoo, the origins of which is shrouded in mystery. Aleister Crowley, a supposed Illuminati himself, entitled the 23rd chapter of his classic book of lies, 23 Skidoo, and revealed that the secret was get out. And then they're saying, it could be nefarious or whatever. But there are 23 axioms in the Euclid geometry, and that's Freemason math, the Euclid. Okay, so the 23% of the universe is dark matter in the telegraphic code. 23 means break the line. While in the I-Ching hexagram, 23 is called breaking apart. I could go on and on. Once you start to look into things, 23, you begin to find them everywhere. Yeah, that's exactly right. But the I-Ching is important. This is the hexagram to do with time. And the extra 5 days, which is pent, right? So then we have the 72 is the quintile. It's the Q. It's the pentagon. So it's all tying in, but it's like this battle between the sun and the moon is always off by 5, right? It's the 5 days. So this is why May, being the 5th month, and the 15 number is so important. It has this battle between the two pillars. So the Euclid math goes to pent as well, the pentagram, with the 23 axioms. Then we have the I-Ching, which is to do with the north and south. Okay, the north is water, and the south is fire. And you can see the symbol of the water symbol. So then you also see the north, east, south, west is Kun and Gen. Kun and Gen put together make the number 23. I'll show you in the trigram chart. So here is it's like a cross section, right? You go Kun across and then Ken, Gen down makes 23. They represent earth and mountain, Kun and Gen. And this is what it looks like when it's put together. It looks like a doorway, right? And this is called the splitting apart. It does not further one to go anywhere. The mountain rests on the earth, the image of splitting apart. Thus, those above can ensure their position only by giving generously to those below. So it comes with an open heart, but it's like a splitting apart. There's a division. So that's what the number 23 or 23 Skidoo means get out. There's a separation. the water symbol together, which is Khan and Khan, is the number 29. Now in David Bowie's Jump video, or You Can Jump, and he's like jumping off a building and he looks dead at the end, but he's still alive. He goes up the elevator and he's going to the 29th floor. So anytime you see number 29, it means water. I think Gail sent me this. Radiation of the animal spirits, the manner of motion of the animal spirits on the subfovation, that they are diffused from the brain towards all parts of the body through the little canals of the nerves as light from the lucid body. So I really do think that something's going to come through the sun and come into the earth and activate people, and people will get a nosebleed. They're showing that symbolism a lot, of the nosebleed, and then I think you end up looking dead to the rest of the people that are stuck in this timeline. That's what they're showing us. Whether it happens, I don't know, but it's literally everywhere. However, the god of time, Tehuti or Thoth, had a different idea. While Atum Ra represents a solar view of space ordering time, Thoth represents a more lunar or biological view of time inhabiting space, realizing that a primeval universe of quintessential ordering was also static and unchanging. Thoth played a strange game of proto-chess or checkers. Thoth was said to have invented the use of 8x8, the magic square of Mercury, game boards, with the moon, an aspect of himself, and won 72 parts of its light. From this artificial light, Thoth created 5 days that did not belong to any other months in the 360 days of Atum Ra's solar year. For these days, Geb and Nut had their romantic encounters, producing a new quintessence, that of the metaphoric neiters or forces. So what's interesting here, it's tying into the Mercury magic square, and it's also tying into the number 72. This is interesting here with the tarot deck. This is the 18th card, which is the moon card. Shows a woman spinning yarn under the moon. Well, yeah, because that's, the spinning yarn, the length of the string. This is Katha and the three fates, right? They're deciding which way you go. Possibly tying into folklore belief that the moon as the goddess of destiny. Oh yeah, we know that. It's all about the moon. The moon appearing with the sun in the sky was a sign of the eminence of the great day of destiny, the last judgment. So when the moon is in the sky at the same time as the sun, and on May 15th, they're just in the sky together, just barely. They're right on the horizon. And this is a little bit earlier in the day at 20:38. So not quite the blood moon, which is at midnight. The sun's at the Pleiades on the west, and the moon is at the east in Libra. This is bizarre. It's at the St. John Church. Guys, a couple people sent me this, and I couldn't see it, but now I'm like, oh my God. St. John's Church, the Divine Pillars. When you zoom in on these pillars, it's amazing. They have the Kabbalah, which is, the 5-5, and up the middle. That's where you want to go. And one of the pillars, it's like the bridge collapsing and vehicles falling off. There looks like a scorpion and a snake, and yeah, it's not looking good. It's like really not nice at all what's happening. And then in the middle between that one and all the skulls on the right, there's like the spiral, which is the way you get out is through the spiral. There's the birthing, like the rebirth. And then if you notice I circled, it's the two hands of God cradling you, and you're being reborn. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty intense what they put up into that church. That's all in New York. Watching this show talking about all these high-rises that are, these skinny high-rises that are in New York, but nobody lives in them. There's just like real estate that is empty. but the zip codes are 10019, so we got the 911, and the other one is 10022, so you got, like, 22. These are the richest billionaire properties in New York in these zip codes. Nora Jones did a Christmas special on top of the Empire State Building, and she's wearing the 5-pointed star. So that was interesting when I saw that. Now, I had somebody tell me about, the La Palma Island, that the word terma, which is how they pronounce it in the language in there, so in Spanish, they're saying that it means oysters catcher, and I couldn't find it, but I finally found it. It translates to oyster catcher, and it reminded me of the Alice in Wonderland movie, the little clip where the oysters get eaten. The mama's saying, don't go, and they're like, yeah, but we want to follow the walrus, so they follow the walrus. He eats them. But this end of at the end, they're talking about cabbages and kings. And then they show Twiddly-Dee and Twiddly-Dum turns from the sun and the moon, they turn into Twiddly-Dee and Twiddly-Dum. So they're basically the two pillars, right? It's the two pillars, the sun and the moon. So they're going on about cabbages and kings in the song, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And then it's an old book that was written in 1904, and they say that it's mentioned in the poem, The Walrus and the Carpenter, featured in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass. Okay, so it's not Alice in Wonderland, it's Through the Looking Glass, but it's funny because the guy that wrote it was O. Henry, so when you're eating an O. Henry chocolate bar, you're worshipping all these crazy poems that were in this book. At the end of the little clip with Twiddly-Dee and Twiddly-Dum, they say, there's a moral to this story, being eaten by the walrus, all these little nice oysters being eaten by the walrus. And Alice in Wonderland goes, she goes, yes, if you're an oyster, that is. But we are the oyster because you create the pearl. Okay, so you can become the pearl. If you don't, if you just choose to follow the walrus because he's like giving you all these, materialism to follow, because that's basically what he was saying to them, and they just decided to follow him. They didn't become the pearl. They got eaten. This is how much an illusion this realm is. The first victim in World War II in 1939 on November 13th, they said was a rabbit. Okay, so if you're in fear, if you're in anger and fear, you're going to be a victim to the war here. This is crazy. It goes that far back. They're just talking about it there. And there's even songs about it. So it's called Run, Rabbit, Run. And it was in an advert for Weetabix. The song is sung by Elmer Fudd as he chases Bugs Bunny. So Bugs Bunny's always on the run, right? He doesn't want to be caught. And then in the television series opener of Outlander, used the song. I love Outlander because it's all about jumping timelines. And then in 2017 horror film Get Out, they use the song. It's crazy. And then they go, a bomb, a song, a rabbit. The first World War II bomb. Yeah, I just showed you guys that. So yeah, there you go. It's like you don't want to be here. You want to be able to get out. The original song has lyrics in it that has to do with pie, like rabbit pie. And then Eminem did a song called Run, Rabbit, Run. Here's his lyrics, besides all his crude ones, but this was interesting. You wait, it ain't too late for you to finally see what you closed-minded fooks were too blind to see. Whoever finds me is going to get a finder's fee. That's crazy. Like they're blatantly telling us that we're stupid and we can't see what's going on. It must be so frustrating for them. So 2022 is the year of the tiger, right? So there's a crystal called Binghamite. We've got the word Bing again, and it's American tiger eye. So Binghamite is a stone that is said to bring all manners of good things, particularly good fortune. Physically, in crystal healing lore, Binghamite is used to regenerate energy flowed in the body, renew cells, ease disease, the brainwave patterns, theta brainwave patterns, burns, convulsions, anemia, ear and nose and throat problems. So I think this is probably a good stone to have with us for this new year, especially if it's helping get people to theta brainwave, which is the balancing of the left and right brain, intuition and logic equally. And then you're in bliss. When you can balance your brainwaves, you're in bliss. It's physically impossible to be depressed when your brain is balanced. Bingamite is connected to the root chakras, which is an energy point located at the base of the spine. Bingamite works on balancing and healing the root chakras by enhancing emotional balance, inner stability, self-control. It makes you deeply connected to the deep grounding energies of Mother Earth, and that's exactly what we need. So I'm going to try to purchase some of this and keep it with me or wear it all the time. So I would recommend that just to help balance with the earth energies. That's what you need to do to ascend. You got to ground. So May 15th, they're saying here, is tying into the 15th lunar day, which the symbol is the fiery serpent, which is what, in mythology is what comes up through the planet and activates you, is the fiery serpent. So that day is linked to it, and we got the number 15 again. So it's really crazy how everything's aligning, numerically, esoterically to May 15th. I have no doubt in my mind now this is the day that we're supposed to be focusing on. Then at 8 something, 8:10, it turns into the 16th lunar day. And this is the butterfly. So it represents ascension, right? Harmony and balance of the mind and body. Keep your balance. Exercise favoring equilibrium are advisable today. This is a good day for cleansing. So yeah, you can read through it. They give a diet thing there and everything, but I don't know. It's so aligning, and my mind is just like blown. I'm just like, wow. So I guess we just wait and see if something happens on February 16th with the full moon, just after Valentine's Day, to see if there is going to be some flooding in New York or something, or are they all planning to do it all on the same day? I don't think so. I think they're going to try to create stress, because it was in the Simpsons show like that too. It's like the flood came, and then he was still looking for the number of the day of the rapture. So I think the flooding comes first. It would really make sense if the flooding came first, because they're going to really test people's root chakras. It's all about the root chakra, right, is what grounds you and activates you. So they're going to test it, and everything like that is to do with your security and your ability to stand on your own 2 feet and to feel strong and stable on your legs. And the root chakras are ruled by Saturn and Jupiter, and that's why we had this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction last year on the winter solstice. This was, all to do with the balance of your root chakras. Now, Pisces is also your feet, ruled by Jupiter, but it's also Neptune. And Neptune's now moved into its own constellation of Pisces, and it can keep people in a fog, or it can be metaphysical if you work with the water. If you work with the water to heal you. But if you refuse to heal, to do the inner work, the water is going to come. That's the way I see how they're playing that. And now I was thinking about how everything tied before into 2012, right? And then I was like, why was 2012 like so pinpointed as the day and all the numbers linking to that day and through the calendars and everything? And I think it was because that was the year of the dragon. It was the water dragon, and now we're going into a water tiger year. So it's like double water. But they dance. The tiger and the dragon have a relationship, and it would make sense that they would do it for like a 10-year span between, right? Because 10 is the one, right? It's the Deci, which in tropical astrology it's Capricorn, right? That's the 10th house is ruled by Capricorn. So, which is the keeper of the key, the devil, right? So that all ties in to astrology as well. So it's interesting. We'll just have to wait and see what happens, but it's really fantastic how it's all lining to the numbers and the wheels and everything in Chinese, and how it's all lining to the sky and all the symbolisms there. So just be the watcher, keep looking and seeing the symbols, And we'll have to see what's going on in the spring. But I'm pretty set on this date now. I can't see it not being this date unless it doesn't happen, and then we start all over again, and we just keep wondering and watching the symbols. But I think in a way we can manifest the door if we believe the door is going to open. So it's important to believe that there's a way out, right? Instead of just being attached to this chaotic, crazy realm. Just watch the Matrix movie. It shows you the way out. It all comes from the inner work. So I want to wish you guys Happy New Year. Take care. And if anybody, would like to help support my channel, I put a lot of time into these videos. It takes me at least 8 to 9 hours to put this video together. And if you guys can even help out by just purchasing an Ascension guide, some of you have done that, and I really appreciate that. I'll do a personalized moon chart to help with your oils, your sacred oils going up your spine to help you save the seed, and that's all calculated through the moon. And I can do that for you with the Ascension guide. I'm having trouble with my chart software. Oh my God, it's so frustrating. And I know I'm delayed on a few of you guys' charts, and I'm trying to get it resolved. Stand by and hang on there. And I really apologize for that. It was just with Christmas, and then yeah, I'm having trouble loading it, this new software, and the other one's not working. So it's frustrating. But anyhow, I'm going to get resolved with all this tech stuff, and the website is on its way being made, and videos are made to start the school. And I know I keep saying it, but there's just life gets in the way. It's really hard to put all this stuff together, plus get all these downloads and put all this together for you guys on top of it. So I'm working on it all, but bit by bit we'll get there. And stay in bliss. That's important. Stay in theta brainwave. Happy New Year. Bye.